Yep, here we are again, folks. It's Brother Peter with tidbits from the Word. I suspect if you've turned on to PH Tidbits, it was because God showed it to you, one thing. The second thing is you're seeking to find how your new life and the life you're in today is going to be a new life tomorrow, and how you're going to work things out. I don't know why, but this is a very, very peculiar thinking right here. I used to have real teeth, and my real teeth gave me much problem. So I had them pulled, and I now have false teeth. They look real. If I didn't tell somebody, they wouldn't know they weren't real. But they are a renewed thing from my mouth that I may be able to chew and eat. That's kind of an example of renewing yourself. You take the old and throw it away that was spoiled and not good anymore, and you get something new to take its place. And the Bible talks about renewing our minds. Be not conformed to this world, but be ye transformed by the renewing of your mind, that ye may prove that which is the good and acceptable and perfect will of God. So I took these old teeth and threw them away, put me a new set in there, and man, they were perfect. I could chew food up, eat it, can talk properly, can do all kinds of things with my teeth in my mouth. The ones I had before got to where I couldn't function properly because poison in my blood, and where they were, and they ached and hurt. This is the way with the old man of sin. When we ask Jesus to forgive us of our sins, come in our heart, and save our soul, we become a new man. If you are a new man, you must walk in a new life. Paul says here in Romans, if I can by any means provoke to emulation them which are my flesh, and might save some of them. You preach to a crowd of many people, and you provoke some of them in their hearts to say, I need to throw these old teeth away and get me a new set. Not verbally speaking of your teeth in the mouth, but the ways of the world. And I need to throw these ways of the world away and get me a new set of ways. And I don't want to be conformed anymore to this world. Where Paul says in verse 1 of chapter 12, talking about an abundant life in chapter 12 of Romans. And he uses the word beseech. That means beg, drag you, get a hold of you by the time. Come on, come with me. I beseech you. A strong word. You therefore, brethren, by the mercies of God. Wow. He says brethren. That means they have said, I want to follow God. And he says, in this same scripture, he says, God is merciful. He's going to forgive you for the past, those old teeth. He's going to forgive you 100% with his mercy, so that you can present this body, your body, as a living sacrifice unto God. Holy, acceptable unto God. God will accept every single inch of you holy. I can't do anything more right here than say, if you happen to be a woman and you happen to have been given to prostitution, give it to God. He'll forgive you 100%, just as if you never sinned before, or just as if, like me, I never had any teeth before. If they were all gone and I've got new teeth now. And you know what the big part of that is? One of the big thing is, I'll never grow any more teeth. So he's saying, if you present your body to God new and stuff, you won't grow any more sin. You won't grow any more harlotry. You won't grow any more prostitution. You won't grow any more lying, cheating, stealing. You won't grow these things anymore. They will be a part of the past. Can you fall? Yes, you can. But you know what Jesus said? Just like when you had your little child and he fell before you and he skinned his hands and you brushed him off and you kissed him a little bit and said, oh, they'll be all right, son. In a few minutes, give them a few minutes, they'll be all right. That's what God does with us. He picks us up, gives us a little kiss and says, hey, you'll be all right. Yes, you fell, but it'll be all right. We're going to help you through this one. You may fall again. And when you do, I'll help you through the next one. Meanwhile, you do the best you can. And you go forward. And you do the best you can. And keep going. Because it's mercies. The mercy of God is gracious. The mercy of God is loving. The mercy of God is living. A living salvation. A living sacrifice, wholly acceptable unto God, which is our reasonable service if he forgives us for all that we have done. You know that Paul said, I was the heathen of heathens, and proud of it. I killed many Christians. Multiple Christians. And I killed them in the worst way I possibly could. I sent them to Rome to put them in the Colosseum in chains. And then I gave them a net. And I sent them out there with a wild lion to see how long they could live. To see how long they could manage before. He said, I would give them a sword. A little bit of protection, not much, to see if they could defeat that lion. And if they did, the crowd would cheer and whatever, and they'd put them back into prison. And they'd bring them out again until they got killed by one of those wild beasts. And Paul was proud of that. Rightfully so, he said, I was proud of it. That was my job. And I did my job well. But the very God that was the God of these people, in his mercy, came over and said, hey, you, Saul of Tarsus, I'm going to change you so drastically, I'm going to change your name from Saul to Paul. And I'm going to teach you my ways. And I want you to take all of the old ways of your life and cast them into the sea of forgetfulness, never more to be remembered. Do you know God never, ever brought that back up to Paul? The only way that Paul was any way aware was in his own writings, where he said, we were at one time in the past this type of people. Now we have been renewed in our minds, in our hearts, in our bodies, and in our life. We are renewed. And if you're renewed, that means you don't do the things you did. You follow a new pattern. Paul said, lest by any means I may provoke. That is a provocative word. To provoke. That means that I want to stop you in your tracks. And I want you to think about it. And see if you don't need to reverse your ways. Put off all of the emulations. What is that? What is an emulation? That was all of the evil things, but when you think of emulation, it's usually more of in the sexual field. Of all the things you've done with your body that were immoral. I've done many, 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 many immoral things with my body as I was growing up. If I was to try to wear and think about it and wear those things that I did immorally with my body as I was a young man, I would throw myself into hell. I would have no choice but be cast into hell because I was a hellish person that did hellish things in a hellish life. But God took me out of those things. God brought me into a new place. And not only with just my mind and my heart, but with my body. So now my body can't involve itself in those emulations. I now have to give my body to Christ and do things which are right with my flesh. He uses these words in this verse 14 of chapter 12 and verse 14. Chapter 11, and verse 14. The flesh, that I might save some of them. Save some of who? Some of those who looked at me. Some of those that said, hey, you know that guy right there? He used to be one of us. But he's not anymore. He's a new person. He doesn't involve himself anymore in those emulations. He doesn't involve himself anymore in that lying, stealing, cheating. He is now a new man. He's a different man. And God's a jealous God. He says in verse 15, for if the casting away of them be the reconciling of the world, which shall the receiving of them be? but life from the dead. I, in my past life, was considered dead to God because I had no connection to God. When you have no connection to the God of heaven, you are like a dead man. When did I get my connection? November 5th, 3 o'clock in the morning, 1972. When I said, Jesus, I am a sinner. I am a man of emulations of the devil. I imitated the devil. I did what the devil would have me do. The very night that I got saved, the very morning I got saved, I had spent a couple of days before in a poker game, swilling alcohol, cursing and swearing, losing everything I owned in a poker game. You've heard that saying, the biggest loser, that was me. But I wrecked my car. It's 3 o'clock in the morning. I'm drunk. I get out of the car and God said to me, your number's up. I was 30 years old. There probably wasn't a gangster in Chicago, Illinois that had any worse reputation than I had. There probably wasn't a pervert walking on the earth that had any worse a reputation than I had. There probably wasn't a liar or a thief walking on this earth that had any worse a reputation than I had. There probably wasn't an alcoholic anywhere on this earth that had any worse a reputation than I had. What are you saying, Brother Peter? I'm saying I was in degradation. I was as low as a human being could get. And God showed me that. All in 1 second. Just like that. Flashed before my eyes. You're going to die and go to hell if you don't ask me to save you. Nobody but me and God there. I looked up to heaven. I said, Lord, I am a sinner. Forgive me of my sin. Come into my heart and save my soul. Instantly. It was like turning a light on. The darkness fled from my body. From that day to this, never swore a cuss word, never touched another drop of alcohol. It took me a long time to lay those cigarettes down. It took me a whole year. But God kept convicting me that to follow Him, I didn't need any of the ways of the world. I needed to get rid of that. And did. And followed Him. And I'm here today to prove it. See, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, and I'm 76. 46 years I have been saved. I can remember that morning at 3 o'clock just as clear as though it were yesterday. I left my car, walked up the road. There was a water plant there. I crawled under the fence, went in and scared the poor guy half to death that was running the place, and said, can I use your phone to call a wrecker truck? And I called a wrecker truck to come get the car, and I rode to LaGrange with him. And I went home. And I told my wife, then of several years, that I had been this wicked man, that I would no longer be this wicked man. Do you think she believed that? Not on your life. She said, yeah, I've heard that 1,000 times since we've been married, but I ain't seen it. But I said, I asked God to save me. We're going to go to church Sunday. She said, we'll see when Sunday gets here if you're still that way. When Sunday got there, we went to church. I told that preacher I wanted believer's baptism. And I got it. And God, the preacher baptized me in the pool. And I was sealed until the day of redemption. Have I always done right? No. I can tell you this, I've never swore a cuss word since then. That's and just by itself was one of the greatest miracles there ever was, because I had a wicked bad mouth. There have been many, many other things I haven't done either. And there have been many learning lessons too. But listen to this. Them which are my flesh, the emulations, that which are my flesh. Putting away those things so that some others might see and be saved, that we were able to put those off. Hey, my drinking buddies, my gambling buddies, all my buddies, they couldn't believe it. They said, you crazy, man. Matter of fact, my neighbor that lived next door, he bet I wouldn't make it. And he rode that horse for several years. And then one day before he died, I heard that he was going to church somewhere. I never found out whether he got saved or not, but I know that he was trying to do different. He and I used to share a bottle of liquor across the fence. A bottle of moonshine, pints of moonshine. Be not conformed to this world, but be ye transformed by the renewing of your mind, that ye may prove that which is the good and acceptable and perfect will of God. As I read this, I think about driving my car, and my transmission went out. So I'm going to get a new transmission, and they say to me, your case of your transmission is worth $1,200. What's bad is what's on the inside of the case. Now we can use the same case and rebuild your transmission that's going to cost you $4,600 to buy one for $2,600 by using some of your parts and using your case. That's like salvation. Salvation is to where God takes the old case. He takes all that bad out of it, and he puts new in it. So this is the old case right here you're seeing, but it's got new parts in it. Got salvation in it. Took the things that didn't work out of it and put things that do work in it. So now we put it in gear, press the pedal, and off we go. And that's going to be your life too. If you ask Jesus, forgive you of your sin, come into your heart, and save your soul. Let's go over to Ephesians chapter 4. And he says in 23 in chapter 4, and be renewed in the spirit of your mind. You got the same body. But right here in the frontal lobe, right there's a thing called the frontal lobe of your mind. You can take a needle and go right up behind your eye right here and stick that frontal lobe with that needle and pull it back out, and it will erase everything in your head. Everything. And you'll go around die. Somebody will have to feed you. Somebody will have to bathe you. Somebody will have to lead you. And you'll be erased. But what God erased, when you ask Him to save you, He erases all of the evil. He erases all of that which was, which is at that minute, and which will be. And you've forgiven of it. And He's saying, do these things no more. You are filled with the Spirit that you might have joy. Verses 19 and 20. Let's look at those. Who being past feeling have given themselves over unto lasciviousness to work uncleanness and greediness. That's what I was. Verse 20. But you have not learned Christ. That's what I was. If so be that you have heard Him and have been taught by Him as the truth as in Jesus. You can sit in a church and die and go to hell. You can sit under the gospel of Jesus Christ and die and go to hell if you do not receive it. That you put off concerning the former conversation. That's the way you used to talk. That the old man, which is corrupt according to the deceitfulness of lust. There's nothing worse than a man like I was, living in a lustful, deceitful, wicked life, lusting after alcohol, lusting after treachery, lusting after somebody else's wife or some other woman, lusting after what the devil had to offer. A transmission that didn't work properly. But God said, you are filled with the Spirit for service. When God filled me with His Spirit, He filled me for service. That means get out, get going, and go. When you pull that thing in gear and you put your foot on the gas, you're going. And you're going spiritually. You are filled with the Spirit for the power to be a witness. Acts 1 and 8, go ye into all the world and proclaim the gospel. Ye are filled with the Spirit for the hour of persecution. You will have persecution, but you're filled with the Spirit to take care of that. You are filled with the Spirit so that you can give a clear presentation of the gospel. I was, but now I am. I was, but now I am. I was, but now I am. Paul said that about many things. About the walking in the Spirit, that you will not fulfill the lust of the flesh. Do you know where the lust of the flesh is? It's still there. But you've got to bury it deep. You've got to cast it away. Put it out of your life. That you no longer do that. And be filled with the Spirit. Led by the Spirit. So that you can fulfill the Holy Spirit's desire for your life. This is where we need to be. I'm going to make this a 30-minute one for a lot of reasons. We took on the seeds of a new nature when we asked Jesus to forgive us of the old nature. And those seeds are now developed 40-something years later, and we're still following them. You need to do the same. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.